Hey everyone, how we doing? Doing good? Nice. What do we actually mean when we call someone talented? Think about the last time you saw someone do an incredible skill. A pianist play something beautiful. An artist create something so uniquely amazing. An athlete doing something undeniable. And we look at that and we say like, wow, that person is talented. But what do we actually mean when we say that? Because I think a lot of us think that talent is something that's obvious. It's something that's natural. It's something that you either have or you don't have. In other words, first comes talent, then some kind of success, right? But growing up my entire life in music, I thought it was so interesting about the way that we talk about talent. Because the moment that we call someone talented is never the moment that their talent actually began. It's just when something invisible becomes visible. And that's the idea I want to share with you guys today. That talent is the visible result of an invisible process. It depends on three things: inclination, environment, and growth. To help you guys understand this, I want to share a personal story of mine. Because looking back at it, my entire journey has been a long, invisible process, way before anyone ever called it talent. So my passion for music started when I was a kid. I had a MIDI keyboard and like a really old iMac, and I'd be in my room all day just making beats. And also I had 4 other siblings. So I'd constantly hear my older brother down the hallway yell at me, saying, "Turn the music down." And at 15, I got a job flipping burgers so I could start buying music gear and building myself a little home studio. And at the time, none of that looked like talent. It just looked like some kid obsessing over something. But I would make music every single day. Not because anyone told me to, not because I thought I was talented, but just something in me had to make music. And it wasn't until now that I realized that was the first part of my invisible process. Inclination, the natural pull towards something, the thing that you keep coming back to even when nobody's watching. And then my invisible process collided with reality in an audition hallway. I was applying to be a guitarist at a music college. And I remember sitting in that audition hallway and I was looking around, and I saw like this guitarist playing like the craziest riffs, and I saw this pianist just flying up and down the keyboard doing his scales. And I was talking to some of them, and they're like, "Yeah, I had private instruction since I was 4, or I grew up in a family of musicians." And that's when it hit me. I was like, wow, like these kids aren't just passionate about music, like they're trained. And if like anyone told me to play the F minor scale, I don't know if I would have been able to do it. Not because I thought I was a bad guitarist, but because I was self-taught. I played more with feeling. But the idea just became more hindering the more that I started to apply to more colleges. Because every college admission email would come back the same. Rejected. 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 And it wasn't until I got my last rejection letter. And I remember I was just laying on my bedroom floor. I was just like staring at the ceiling. And I was questioning everything. Because at this point, music just wasn't a passion of mine. It was like my whole identity. But I started questioning myself, was the story I was telling myself wrong? Maybe music wasn't for me. Maybe I'm just not talented enough. So the next day, I was in the car with my dad, who's here. Hi, Dad. And then he mentioned to me, "You should try applying for Berklee." And immediately I was just like, what? Like I completely brushed it off because I was like, I couldn't even get into like my local state music school. What makes you think I can get into like one of the best music schools that there is? But then another part of me was like, I guess I have nothing left to lose anymore. So I applied, I auditioned, and I guess you could tell that I got in. And coming to Berklee was so incredible because you really have like the world's best musicians all in one little area. It's also so incredible because it makes the perfect breeding ground for imposter syndrome. Because in the audition hallway, if I thought like the musicians were good there, I was here at Berklee now, I was looking around at the musicians, I was just like, whoa, like these kids definitely know how to do music now, you know? And I remember just being like music theory classes and feeling so behind. I'm like, I'm never going to be able to catch up. And I kept telling myself the same story. They're the talented ones, and I'm still behind. But it wasn't until I started to collaborate with more musicians here at Berklee that I realized I listen to music way more differently than everyone else here. For example, if we think of a drummer, they're listening to the pocket, they're listening to the groove. If we think of a vocalist, they're listening to the lyrics, to the top line. But when I listened to a song, I was listening to the production, the concepts, the little textures throughout. And that's when I realized, wow, I think I love production way more than performing. And this idea just became more clear when I did a writing camp here at Berklee. And how writing camps work is that there's groups of producers and songwriters that split off for a couple hours, and they make a couple songs, and then everyone comes back together to share the songs. First group comes up, play their song, incredible, clapping, great. Second group comes up, play their song, incredible, clapping, great. My group comes on with the track that I produced, play the song ends, and then it was silent. In my head, I was just like, oh my gosh, I completely blew it, like this is it. I felt so bad. But all of a sudden, everyone just started clapping, and then I got a few woos here and there. And all of a sudden, someone shouted, whoa, like who made that track? And I was like, are they talking about me? Because for the first time, I wasn't the kid that didn't know his music theory or didn't know his scales. I was a kid that made a track that blew everyone in the room away. And that made me realize something about talent. Because if talent is the visible result of an invisible process, then what is that process actually made up of? And this whole time, now I realize 3 things have been building up this entire time: inclination, environment, and growth. So let's start with inclination. Inclination, the natural pull towards something. The thing that you keep coming back to even when nobody's watching. For me, that was making music every single day. Nobody told me to do that. I didn't do it because I thought I was talented. So that I just had to make music every single day. And that's inclination. Doesn't mean that you're good at it yet. It just means that something fascinates you enough to keep coming back to it. And second was environment. Environment determines if that inclination will ever show up. And some abilities might feel invisible in one environment, but completely obvious in another. For example, in the audition hallway, talent looked like scales, it looked like sight reading, and there my abilities felt very invisible. But then when I did the writing camp here at Berklee, all of a sudden those same skills that felt invisible suddenly became really obvious. Because talent there looked like production, it looked like concepts. So sometimes it doesn't mean that you're not talented. It just means that you have to tweak your environment. And last one is growth. And growth is the longest and hardest one. It's all those late nights that you take working on your craft. The failures, the redirections, the wins, the victories. Whenever you wanted to give up, but you kept going. And for me, that was years of invisible work before anyone ever said, wow, who made that track? And when these 3 things combine, inclination, environment, and growth, something interesting happens. What used to look like skill starts to look like talent. And what used to look invisible suddenly becomes so obvious. And then people will say one very simple thing. They'll say, wow, that person is talented. But now you know what they're actually saying. The visible results of an invisible process. Thank you.